So how many of you in the room are certified organic already? Anybody's already certified? Okay. Anybody transitioning? Thinking about transitioning? We got, okay. And everybody else is here because they want to learn a few things. Everybody's like, yep, I want to learn a little bit more. How many of you are actively farming though? Like, okay. So about half the room is actively farming. So the conversation we're going to have today, and many of you may know that a big part of becoming certified organic versus just being organic, right? So we know under the federal regulations that you can use the word organic in your business and selling products as long as it's less than $5,000 in gross annual sales. If you go over $5,000 in gross annual sales, then you fall under the requirement that you need to be certified. So becoming certified organic comes with this thing that you need to do called this organic system plan. And it's the core piece of everything you do on your organic farm. And the first conversation you're going to be having with your transition advisor is, what does that plan look like for me and my farm as I'm transitioning from conventional to organic, or what that looks like for your farm. On my farm, and I want to speak a little bit to my experience, when I first started doing organic system plans, I don't know, 20 years ago, and Bob, you've been around long enough, you know too, they were quite simple. I mean, it wasn't like it is today, and a lot of it was narrative. Remember the narrative organic reports we used to write? It was all narrative reports. You had a conversation with the farmer, open up your farm log, you walk through your activity log. It was very narrative. It was very much a conversation with the farmer about what's happening, what's working, what's not working for you. Well, over the period of 20 years, things have gotten a little bit more organized and a little bit more structured. And now we have checklists, a lot less narrative conversation, right? The inspector comes out and he has a checklist. They're usually going through a checklist. And then you have an organic system plan that's much more structured. It's a lot of yes/no questions and describing your practices as far as like, what are you doing in this area? What are you doing in that area? You know, on your farm. And so it takes a lot more planning. And as I was going through this process, what I was finding, you know, and I've been to hundreds of farms around the world, is the farmers that look at their organic system plan as a blueprint or a tool to help them thrive and flourish rather than a bureaucratic thing they have to do, actually were more successful. So I want you to think of your organic system plan, not something like that's pushed down on you by your certifier, this thing that you have to do, but actually how can you get excited about your organic system plan. Now, I don't know about you, but I just resubmitted to MOSA all my organic paperwork. I went back through and I had to update my livestock plan, I had to update my crop plan, I had to do my renewal plan, and there's several. If you have a greenhouse, how many of you doing greenhouse production? There's a greenhouse organic system plan. There's one for crops, there's one for livestock, there's one for handlers. There's one if you're doing, I think I saw one for mushroom production. So if you're doing mushrooms, so there's different types of organic system plans. If you're certified to 3 scopes, crops, livestock, and handling, guess what? You're gonna have 3 system plans. And it's a lot of work. At one time in our farm, in our history of our farm, we were doing 3 because we have an on-site processing plant. But we were able to give up our handler plan because we were just doing simple single ingredient processing of chicken, so we were able to actually include that on our livestock plan. Some certifiers allow that, some certifiers don't. It just kind of depends on what your market is. So the organic system plan, as we're talking about it, it's not just crops, but you may be doing 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the scope of your farm. So today I want to talk about how you can use your organic system plan, not as something that you have to do because someone says you have to do it, but how can you actually use it to thrive and flourish on your farm. So an organic system plan is this, I look at it as kind of a detailed roadmap for your farm management for these different areas. It's required for USDA certification. It describes all of your soil, plant, animal processing, all of these interrelated practices. And it's a living document. That's what I think of mine. It's a living document that evolves with your farm's needs. I had a conversation recently with someone who said to me, well, I thought there was just like a set 30-foot buffer strip that all organic farms have to have. Like it's just set 30 feet. And I said, no. You might even know what the rule is for buffer strips in organic? Anybody know what who officially defines that? Bob, maybe do you have thoughts on how is a buffer strip defined on each individual farm?
It used to be, it was up to the producer. But it was, if you think there's contamination that is happening there, you can't harvest that.
Right. So it's based on risk. Your buffer strip may be 10 feet, it may be 0 feet, it may be 100 feet. It's all based on risk to contamination. So on our farm, we have one side of our farm where we can farm up to the fence line. We can legally farm up to the fence line because my neighbor graciously put the 30-foot setback on his side of the fence. Don't you love that when that happens? So our neighbor and another neighbor put the setback on their side. I have another neighbor who put the setback on their side. So we can farm up to the fence on two sides of our farm because I worked it out with our neighbors. So they put pollinator habitat, trees and shrubs in that area, and it works very well. But when you do your organic system plan, every year it changes. They're going to ask you, well, what is your neighbor planting this year in this field and in this field and this field? So every year it changes. So when you're developing your organic system plan, I like to use electronic records. I like to do mine electronically because it can change. I just submitted mine on Saturday, and my husband and I went through and said, this is what we're going to plant in these fields, and this is what's going to happen. But nature is nature, and we may get a substantial rain, we may get an event happen out of our control, and now all of a sudden we're looking at, we got to change our system plan because we're not going to be able to do that in this area. So it's a living document. It needs to evolve with your farm's needs. So and this is kind of hard to read, so I apologize, but some key components of the OSP is the farm map and the field history, the soil management and fertility, crop rotations, cover crops, pest management, input seeds and feeds, and record keeping, marketing, and sales purchases. So for those of you who are certified, you probably, maybe, this is my certifier, MOSA. They provided me this year a binder. I haven't transferred over. I'm largely a person that's paperless. I like paperless because what I really like is, some of you may do this as well, I have all my apps and all my activity logs. I carry my wonderful handy dandy little iPad mini, and everything is on my iPad. And what's great about that is I can go out into the field and I can enter my information in my Excel spreadsheet. I can take pictures of what's happening, and then I can upload it right into the spreadsheet. So when the inspector comes, I can say, yep, we had a thistle problem in this area, and this is how we eradicated it. So I can take a picture of the problem, upload it. I can also catalog my nutrient deficiencies. Inspectors only come to your farm once a year. If we have a problem in spring and I need to apply or look at doing something different in my system plan, I have to justify why I did that. Pictures are a great way to demonstrate what's going on and why that I needed to do that practice. So it's evolving and it's changing. But there's various different sections. So I'm just showing an example from MOSA. There's, I don't know, I have a list here. There's lots of different certifiers working in South Dakota. Last I counted, I think it was like over 36 different certifiers. I have a list out at the table. MOSA is one of them operating in our state. There are several others. And one thing I do want to share with you is that each certifier has their own forms and their own templates that they want you to use. Now you can download, you can get books like this This is an awesome book from SARE, the Organic Transition Planner. This is a really great resource for folks who are transitioning and looking to move that direction and kind of add that information as far as like what do we need to do to get started. So this is kind of like a great kind of overall strategizing tool to kind of get you there and thinking about what you need to do. But all the data that you put in here will eventually get transferred when you start applying for certification. It's going to get transferred to your certifier's forms, which is the ones that they want you to use. And so I'll have different sections in my binder for the different elements. So for MOSA, it looks like there's 8 different sections in here. Your communication with your certifier, your organic plans, your maps, your field histories, your input records, your seed records, your audit trail records, and your activity records. And there's a little bit more. So this was written in 2015. There's a couple of pieces of information that if you're using this guide, I want to share with you, and that is since this guide was published, the USDA has came out what's called the Strengthening Organic Enforcement Rules, which allows a few more different things that you have to do. It's a lot based on risk, so certifiers are going to ask you, how are you verifying that the seeds that you're getting are actually organic, or the inputs that you're getting are actually approved for organic. And then there were some updates as well to the livestock standards, especially for poultry, regarding outdoor access and things like that. So one of the big parts for us in building out our organic system plan is the soil management and fertility. You heard Ben talking about how, Luke Peterson has a 15-year crop rotation plan, and he's doing cover cropping and green manure. On our farm, we have a 7-year plan, so we're thinking way out. In a standard organic system plan, they're asking for a 3-year cropping history or a 3-year plan, so kind of looking 3 years out. But we look out further than that, largely because what we have found is, let's just talk about corn, for instance. We found that planting corn more frequently than every 3rd year was sucking so much nitrogen out of our soil that we weren't able to put it back in fast enough with cover cropping. So we stopped doing corn. We only do that now once every 4 to 5 years. It's a great crop, but it takes a large amount of nitrogen out of your soil, and you got to pump that back in some way. We decided to become a zero input organic farm. When we went regenerative, one of the reasons we went that way is because we were really struggling here. And we went back through our organic system plan, and we were doing everything according to the rules. But what we were finding is that even though our soil organic matter was stable, when we were monitoring our soil and nutrient balance, things were very much wrong in our soil. Aggregate stability was off, our yields were off, and we called in a consultant from SoilWorks, and we're like, okay, they're in Yankton. And we're like, what is going on? We're farming organic, we're doing everything right. What's the problem here? And what we didn't or weren't really truly understanding is that the soil is living and alive, and we need to look at it that way. And all the things we were doing with tillage, we were just overworking the top 3 inches of the soil. We were doing like a lot of organic farmers and doing weed control. Yes, we had beautiful crops. There was no weeds hardly in that field, but it was because we were overworking the ground, and we found that's not sustainable. So after 5 years of doing that, we nearly destroyed our soil. And so we went back and we looked at it and we said, okay, we're going to throw this system plan that we have kind of out the window, and we got to do something different. So then we adopted the regenerative organic system plan from the Regenerative Organic Alliance. Even if you don't plan on getting certified, it is absolutely amazing and transformative for your farm. So I'm going to be speaking about that in my next session, but here I'm just going to talk mainly about the main areas of your farm, and thinking about especially like a tillage plan. A current organic system plan, a lot of them don't really talk about tillage plans. So we added a tillage plan. We added our cover crop plan that went out 5 years. So we did more than what the system plan was asking, and looking at how our whole focus went from generating like the most yield that we can get because we have a bank loan that we have to make, to how can we build the soil so that the soil is giving back more than we're taking, and we're building it up more than what we're taking out of it, which is something that Ben mentioned today, which is so important about regenerative. The other thing we did with our pest, weed, and disease management program, and one thing that we changed in our organic system plan, is we went from a reactive to a proactive proactive process. We wanted to get to 0 inputs. People are, yes, we basically were able to, I can't remember the last time we purchased an input other than seeds, and then we potting medium for our starter plants, but we aren't buying a lot of inputs anymore. We make stuff. So we're practicing with making our own compost teas. We make our own compost on the farm. We make our own amendments, and what we've seen is our production is thriving. So we do an integrated pest management program, so we're doing more observations. We take more pictures. We're walking through the fields more. We're looking like where are the problems before they start. We also started doing companion planting and looking at biological controls. So in your organic system plan, I mean, you would add this into your area of, you know, how are you controlling for weeds and pests? So we did a lot of research on which plants work best with these plants, and we started doing things like that. Our weed suppression strategies, we went from 10 years ago, honestly, we were struggling with weed control. We go out in our pastures today, and there's hardly any weeds out there. I mean, nature naturally solved its problem when we went regenerative. The weed problems went away. We had NRCS come out to our farm, and the guy was so excited. He's walking out around on our border strips, and he's like, oh my gosh, there's big blue stem growing in here, and look at these native grasses coming back. They naturally started coming back, and this guy was so excited. He goes, this grass, I haven't seen this grass in our county in like, 30 years, and it was exciting to see, that conversation happening. I heard the secondhand from my husband that he was pointing out native grasses are coming back on our farm without us planting them. So we took our buffer strips and we put those into native grass habitat. We just let nature take its course and come back. We had buffer strips in the first few years that were full of weeds. Now you can't hardly find a weed. Nature just took over and did its thing by just working with it and giving it time. Is it painful to walk out there and see all those weeds? Oh yeah. We just chop them down, and I just walk back and turn my back and go, I know it's gonna get better. I know it's gonna get better. Nature heals itself. Nature heals itself. I was talking to a farmer out West River, the Grosix, I think. We were at their field day with the Grosix. And he was talking about that field up on the hill that was so full of weeds, and they just didn't know we were just so worried that all those weeds were gonna blow on their farm. But just over time, nature healed that field that was full of all those weeds naturally, and now there's hardly any weeds. When we were looking out at that beautiful field of grass at pasture land, nature healed itself. Regeneratively, it healed itself. So it is possible to do these things without using depending on the chemicals and depending on those things. So we're always looking for ways in which we can use companion planting and cover crops and those types of things to work through some of the problems on our farm. The other part that's really challenging for farmers in this, is the paperwork. I hear a lot of farmers who are transitioning to organic. They're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much paperwork. I don't have time for more paperwork in my life. So when I talk to farmers about, okay, so what is it that in your plan that you're really struggling with? So those, I don't know, those of you, how many of you have filled out an organic system plan, or kind of what one is about, but you have an experience? I know, Bob, you have probably done a few in your life. Maintaining these detailed records of input, harvest, and sales, and all of the paperwork that you have to do in order to ensure compliance with the regulations, because your inspector is going to come out and look at this stuff. When we started doing that, we started looking and keeping detailed records. We started again, my husband is not a paperwork person. My husband is not a record-keeping person at all. He's I just want to do the work in the field, which is, I think a lot of farmers are that way. That's the part that just drives everybody crazy, because they're like, so then him and I were having this conversation. I'm like, honey, you are going to have to keep records. And we were having this just intense conversation. I'm like, I'm sorry, but the inspector is going to come, and he's going to want to see the paperwork. So we're going to have to work this out. And I said, well, how can I help you do this? And we had a really great, we're still struggling with it today. But I said, so how can I help you? So I bought him an Apple smartphone. And he's not a smartphone kind of guy, right? He's a very non-techie guy, and he still doesn't even know how to use it. And I'm like, I'm going to show you how to use Google Drive. And we're going to, how you can pull it up on your phone, and you can kind of, and I said, guess what? You can speak into it. And he's like, what? I said, yes, you can pull up a Google Doc, and you can speak into it. And he's like, oh, I like that. And I said, so what if I got you some really nice AirPods, and you put your pocket in your phone, and you just went out in the field, and you started talking into the phone all the stuff you see and the stuff you're doing. You can just record, okay, I went out, I worked this field, or did this and that. I said, what do you think about that idea? And he's like, you know what? I like that. I think I like that idea. I think I could do that. I said, okay, well, let's try it. So that's the process that we've moved to, and that whole Google, I guess it's called Google Voice, and it translates when you speak into it into a Google Doc. It works great. And the AI feature, as long as you have good internet connection, that's the key, right? If you have internet on your phone, which we do, I moved him to unlimited data usage because he was so concerned, we're going to run out of data. Well, honey, you don't have to worry about that because I just moved us to an unlimited data plan with Verizon. So he's like, okay. And then he's like, well, and then we put some repeaters out on the farm so he could boost his signal, and now he really doesn't have a reason not to do it. So we're testing this out, and I think he actually likes it. And so we're able now to, when we talk about, making our organic system plan more worthwhile, we're doing a better job at recording actually what's happening in the fields, and we're finding that information very helpful because I'm like, okay, what did we do last year at this time in this field? And now we have the information to go back and look and say, okay. And the inspectors really like it because when they come, we have these really nice detailed activity logs, everything's being recorded. My husband's happy because he doesn't have to deal with paper anymore, and he loves to talk. Anybody who knows Glenn knows he loves to talk, and I just found something that really worked for him. Now he can talk it out, and he talks to the animals. He has this relationship with the animals that I learned about, and he actually has names for them, and he goes out and he talks to them, and I'm like, they're like his pets, and so it's hilarious. But people can really see how we do that. So some things to think about when you're making your OSP more than just a bureaucratic piece of paper, this paper pushing thing that you have to do, is thinking about how can you incorporate a time. Doing this annually does take time. So it took our entire Saturday this weekend, and my husband and I are both looking at each other going, we'd much rather be outside, but okay, we have to do it. So we make the best of it. So I make a pie, I have everything ready, we spend the whole day together at the kitchen table, and he is lovely. He's just so happy. We're doing our system plan update today, and I try to just do it, just make it like not like a kind of like a lot of farmers come into it going, oh, I have to do this again. Instead, no, it was actually a time of having a conversation. It's like, okay, honey, what are we going to do this year? We get out the seed catalogs, we start talking about our inputs and different things we're doing. How are we going to, what are we doing for our compost tea this year? And should we call Greg Stock to come out and help us with dandelion compost and things like that we have? It actually is an exciting time for us as we're planning. And then we talk about how we're going to adapt our farm challenges and observations, and that's where my husband comes in, and this becomes really important. If you're doing this as a couple, it's for some, it could lead to divorce. For others, it leads to connection. For me and my husband, it leads to connection. And then we work together on him saying, okay, honey, you're out in the field, you're doing a lot of the farm observations. What does that look like? What are the challenges that you're seeing? He goes back into his notes, we pull out the farm log, he comes and brings them out and says, okay, this is what we had last year, this is what we're gonna do this year. And then integrating new organic practices and market opportunities. So this is a time for us to talk about, okay, what's the market price for corn? What's the market price for wheat? Should we do wheat? Where's the buyers? What are they asking for? So we have actually buyers right now calling us saying, will you grow this? Will you grow this? Will you grow this? That's a good problem to have. And they're giving us really good prices. And we're working with the buyers right now. What do you want us to grow for you? And it allows us to look at those different market opportunities for our family, what's going to be best for our family, what can we actually do, and then we make those decisions together. And then it also helps us align with our long-term farm goals of a 7-year crop rotation. So what does that look like for us? What do we, my husband is 60, so he's looking at retirement in 5 years or 7 years. And so we're thinking about how does this align with our long-term goals and what we want to do. So it's more than just taking it and looking at it like, okay, what's happening right now? It's more like we also think about, okay, what is it going to look like 3 or 4 years from now? So this is kind of just a quick screenshot from what a typical current year field plan. So we just kind of did ours. Every certifier is different. This is the one we use for MOSA. So you'll notice that in here we put changes. And one of the changes we made this year was we had a big field, field 1. We divided it up into 3 distinct parcels because we're going to start rotating different crop families in this field as part of our regenerative practices. And so here we're doing a lot of vegetables. We have our alfalfa hay, our aronia berries. We're doing sweet corn, potatoes, carrots, watermelon, beets, milo, sunflowers, and my husband is doing Jerusalem artichoke. I'm like, what? And he's like, yes, we're going to do Jerusalem artichoke. He's been reading about it and he wants to try it. I'm like, okay. Does anybody do Jerusalem artichoke? Has anybody ever grown it? What's your experience with it? Is it? Pardon? Okay. We're gonna try it. I don't know. There is a really good market for organic Milo right now, and so we're trying it out. We're looking. We found a white Milo market, and I also, through my research, found out that there's a growing market for organic birdseed blends for, I guess, zoos. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. So, I mean, there's so many interesting market opportunities, right? You can't take advantage of them at all, but this is a time for us to talk about it. So, so I just kind of write out kind of the different things that we're doing, how we're going to do that, what that looks like for us, and then I put that together in this plan. And this is really the driver when you're doing your system plan or your current year field plan. It's actually 2 steps to this. One is your 3-year plan, and one is your current plan. But this is going to change. I guarantee you it's going to change. I turned this in on Saturday, but I am certain that probably something here is going to change because either we can't get the seed that we want because we haven't ordered our seed yet. It could be that one of the fields are not going to be conducive to it. I'm quite